Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Okay, guys, subhanallah. Again, the credit for this particular find goes to Clicks Bits. Muhammad, Jazakallah khairan for drawing my attention to his comment. Again, I really do appreciate the assistance I get from you, subhanallah. Um, um, right, it's a very detailed description of what we have been fearing all along is what they will do. This article was published on the 25th of December, just a few days ago, 2018. It's a detailed description of how they would artificially induce a tsunami, subhanallah, which has been our position, and more specifically so on the United States of America. We've also have postulated and in fact impressed on our beloved ipg2 that they are looking to manufacture the passages of the Bible in Revelation 12 in tandem with Ezekiel 38 and 39. This part of, I guess, the passage of the Bible being referred to here is the one where the dragon spews out water from his mouth, chasing the woman with child. Okay, and then the earth, as it were, the ground in the United States will crack open to maybe draw in the water that's coming from the tsunami. All of this lends itself to the 2030 vision that they've got, the borders and the boundaries. Hence, what you've got is the wall that they're discussing, setting up to separate the USA from Mexico. Anyway, this article itself is very, very detailed, and I certainly recommend that our beloved ulama ikram sink their teeth into this and read it. It's really important, very important, simply because this event is on the horizon. It's if I was a betting man, I'd say it's going to happen very, very, very soon. They're discussing how they would go about doing this. They've got the technology. There's a lot of mythical names mentioned here, like the I think Eye of Odin. If any of you know your mythology, you'll understand that it is a reinterpretation of Horus, and Horus is an interpretation of a Dajjal. Um, uh, uh, and Interesting enough, Odin has to be. It turns out to be one-eyed, by the way, but he goes back to, I guess, Viking folklore. Um, uh, and then you've got Poseidon again. That's Greek mythology, right? The god of the oceans, the sea, and which again recently, interesting enough, and this is just part of the predictive programming. We had uh, um, uh, Hollywood had released a movie called Aquaman, and in that again there's a lot of mention on Poseidon, and this again it's all just lending into water, right? And there's a lot of stuff here, subhanallah, but we're not going to talk about the occult doctrines. More specifically, I want you to just approach this on a very scientific level and read through it, understand it, digest it, um, and appreciate exactly how. I mean, we've been maintaining this position for quite a while. In fact, we've insisted that maybe perhaps they're going to use the Babylon Canyon near New York in order to trigger this tsunami. Wallahu alam exactly where. But we've always maintained in the science PDF that we'll see the three great landslides, the one in the east, the west, and the Arabian Peninsula. And then since then, we've been maintaining a position that this will also be manufactured by the shayateen in ins and jinn. When you've got so much water and they've already doused so much of the country with copious amounts through storms, we have been following that. You've seen how there was Florence and then Oscar, and we discussed the biblical positions of that. Oscar being the tip of the spear, and that, according to biblical narrative, pierced the side of Jesus when he was on the cross. Um, these are all like they lend into a certain narrative, which is deliberate by Iblis Lanatullahi alayhi. It's certainly not meant for the average layman, but the initiates, and then there's this discussion happening, or even, let's say, a mockery from Iblis lanatullah to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is stuff that we need to understand through comparative religious studies, but again, it's lost on us. Even those of us who have studied comparative religious studies on um, a um, conventional secular level. Um, those of you who are graduated, having studied it, this is stuff that you've been almost um, as it were, it's controlled information. In other words, it's been spoon fed to you, and that's basically the narrative that they want you to believe, understand, and regurgitate to whomever your students or whatever. But the real stories, subhanallah, they have been. I mean, a perfect case in point would be the Smithsonian, how they, as an institution, behind the facade of the institution, they go around looking for these archaeological sites, or at least finding them. And once they've discovered them, then they suppress what they have unearthed. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His Kalam tells us to go and see and find and search what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had done to past nations as a sign for believers, subhanallah. And it's unfortunate this is the condition of the Ummah. We're not being able to discern, disseminate through and filter through the information that they give us. We actually do, and pun intended, by it as the gospel, which is really not a true interpretation of what history was. Guys, please just read this, subhanAllah. I know I've gone off on a tangent again. This is important stuff. You need to really understand and appreciate how this is going to be done, because a lot of the Ummah is going to be traumatized through this experience. It's going to be 9/11 revisited at the power of a million, right? So understand the significance of all of this, because this is going to be their last um, um, I guess, onslaught before the arrival of a Dajjal, which will be the 7 years that will follow this, the 7 years of tribulation, which would start when this attack in Syria will happen, and what we will see with Revelation 12, and the USA being the primary target, along with the rest of the world, and for it to permeate throughout. Um, there's a huge plan. The exodus of all the migrants coming to Europe. This is part of the plan, right? We've discussed this as well, I guess, ad nauseum, a considerable amount of length. That they've deliberately created the conditions so that they can then remove and neutralize most of the threat to Israel as they seek to extend their territory. All of this lends into the Great Israeli Project, and I'm hoping that you guys can discern that now. So they've sent them to Europe, and it's fine. Over here, they can assimilate, they can cause whatever issues and problems that would come with any sort of an exodus from any kind of people to another, a new country where they have very little in terms of their own history or in terms of their wealth and I guess um, their financial support, right? So it's all deliberate and by design, subhanallah. There's so many things, but again, for this particular vlog, I just wanted to focus on the tsunami and have you guys really just sink your teeth into this and appreciate this is a scientific journal, and it clearly outlines how they would do this. The wrath of Odin. I mean, this is honestly, this stuff is. It stands out to me a mile. I'm not sure for any one of you reading this whether you really appreciate it. I know Clicksmix, you do, and thank you. Really appreciate your time, buddy. Jazakallah khair wa sanu jaza for your time. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.